All right, and we're back with some bonus content. If you noticed, when we did the 2020 NFL draft, we left out one team, those Chicago Bears. Yeah, we got to have a therapy session, I guess, because I think my buddy over here is not feeling too promising about some of these draft picks. And I got to say, in some cases, I don't feel too great either. So let's get into it. But Charlie, I got to ask you, how are you feeling about Ryan Poles after this draft, his very first inaugural draft?
You know, like most fans, definitely wasn't overly thrilled about some of the decisions. And thankfully, we didn't do this on draft night when they were done, thankfully. So we've had time to sleep on this and digest this and take the fan, out, if take the fan out of the decision making. Ryan Poles got the job because he was the only person to say the roster is bad. He was the only person to say that, so they gave him the job. And we're looking at the roster. Um, as Bears fans, we can like certain positions. Every year, it seems like there's a new person in there because they didn't have someone key that's just supposed to be in there. For example, when the Bears got rid of Kyle Fuller, it's been a rotation of corners in and out. When the Bears didn't sign Amos, every year we've had a different safety starting alongside of Eddie Jackson. So little things like that. So if you take your fandom out of it, you might appreciate it more. But let's go over the picks, I guess, unless you want to add something to it.
Well, yeah, I wanted to add that, when it came to Ryan Pep Poles, I was riding with him initially just because he's a black GM and just those are so rare that I had to go with the black guy. I just had to. I have to admit that I have to be honest. It's so very rare that the black GM gets an opportunity that I'm like, all right, this guy's going to get an opportunity. I'm rolling with them. This is like how black quarterbacks used to be, in the early 90s or the 2000s. It didn't matter how trash they were, you were riding with them because, they were getting their opportunity and you had to ride with them. But after seeing him and his philosophy and seeing his coaching choices, I started to grow in confidence in him. I actually really, really like him as a GM. I think that his philosophy on team building is perfect. If you look at the free agency, just to start, he didn't overspend on anybody. He didn't go out there and go out and get the big name free agent that was garbage. That like say Allen Robinson with us in previous years, or Musin Muhammad, or Julius Peppers, who wasn't that great either for us, honestly. Um, so I love that philosophy. I had this argument with my brother for probably, man, 3 days, I want to say. I had an argument with him, and all he wanted to talk about was how Ryan Poles was doing nothing, that he didn't pick up any talent, that he was failing Justin Fields, when I disagree entirely. Justin Fields, it's evident that Justin Fields is not going to be graded on this upcoming season. All they want to see is continuous improvement by him, but it's not going to be measured in wins and losses or even yardage or touchdowns. It's just continuous improvement. What they're trying to do is to tear it all down to the studs and rebuild it back up using bargain bin pieces that they can find along the way until they can get Justin Fields in position to be successful. And then I think that they're going to go out there. They're going to do what the Chargers just did, what the Bengals just did. They're going to spend a bunch of money building up a team with some veterans as while they have Justin Fields on a rookie contract and try to make that run for the Super Bowl. And I think there's evidence of that. We're going to see clear evidence of that as we break down this draft. So let's get into it. Let's talk about his very first pick, Kyler Gordon, cornerback from Washington. Initial reaction, I got to know.
Because I was listening to it at work, and some of the mock drafts they had Kyler Gordon going to the Bears, and I was like, I don't think I heard his name, but as a Bears fan, we want receivers. I think most fans, we wanted receivers, we wanted that instant gratification. I wanted Christian Watson, but obviously he went to the Packers, so I guess he's going to be a bust now. Um, I wanted Georgia, the guy Pickens or Alec Pierce. He went with Kyler Gordon. Now, taking the Bears fan out of it, did the Bears need a starting cornerback? Yes.
Absolutely.
This guy is starting cornerback material. So at first I was like, yeah, I don't know. But you know what? I feel it because it was a position in need. It's not like we had it, you know. We're looking at I have this thing for the stats right here. Um, the Bears gave up a lot of yards in the secondary. They gave up 31, I believe it's 31 touchdowns. 27 of those touchdowns, there was a corner nearby. So our corners were giving up big plays. There are times where if your pass rush don't get there, your corners have to make plays. Jalen Johnson was the most consistent in the secondary. He didn't give up many big plays. Eddie Jackson, supposed to be good, gave up some big plays. Especially in the first game to the Rams, he gave up two big ones to Cooper Cup. So all in all, I really think this is a solid pick. He's going to come in and start. I mean, he came from was it Washington, I believe,
Yes,
and
correct.
they produce good corners. They do.
They
His
do.
buddy went in the first round. So all in all, I think the first pick was solid, and he did take the best available player on the board.
Um, so if you remember some conversations you and I had, I said
Okay.
if it was going to be a receiver, Christian Watson was the guy I wanted just because sheer potential.
Right.
However, you remember I told you on the phone, I said, I would hope that he drafts a corner. And I remember you were like, "Oh no," like I can't believe you would say that and that it wouldn't be a receiver, right?
Right.
So the reason why I chose that position because I felt that position was actually the greatest need in the draft. We couldn't go back into the season with Kendall Vildor, like Kendall Vildor, who was getting burnt, and we couldn't go back in with all those other guys that we had, Duke Shelley and all those guys. It
Graham.
was impossible. So you can't give up if you're going to give Justin Fields a chance. Just like you have to give him weapons, you also have to give him a defense that's going to stop people, so that he's not in a shootout every single game. So, in my opinion, the best offense in this case was a defense because what we don't want our second year quarterback doing is trying to go out and score 40 points every single game. If we can give him a decent defense and a somewhat okay offense, his talent level should rise to the occasion and he should be able to get roughly 24 with Lugetzi with a real coordinator, he should be able to get 24 to 30 points a game in this NFL. So I was really excited about this. The other thing that I was really excited about with him is that I don't know if you're aware of this. He hadn't
Hmm.
given up a touchdown in the last two seasons.
I
Two
do remember.
whole seasons.
I do remember seeing that.
What cornerback can you recall in the modern NFL that came out of college that hadn't given up a touchdown in two seasons in college? 18 games, no touchdowns. And also, he's versatile. And so, of course, we're going back to the cover two, which I'm so thrilled about going back to that. But he's going to be able to play on the outside, but he can also play on the inside. So he can play the nickel if we absolutely have to have him play the nickel. But we're also going to be able to see him on the other downs go back outside, and he can play outside. We already have Jalen Johnson on the other side, who's turning into a shutdown corner in his own right. Going into his third season, we're probably going to see another jump out of Jalen Johnson, where he's probably going to because they're already not throwing his way as it is. We're probably going to see him take to the next level. So getting that second corner is just going to solidify the defense, and if the Bears can get a decent pass rush, watch out. Any other additional thoughts on him? Or are you good to move on?
No, I think we're good to move on. But yeah, the other corners we had we don't want them starting. So I think this is
No, no,
I think this is a solid plug and play player.
absolutely abysmal. So hopefully we'll get better. The next pick he got in the second round as well, Jaquan Brisker. So I got to ask again, how did you feel when you heard that name? Because I know
I,
you thought it was going to be offense. I know it.
I, hey, come on, the dude from Georgia, Alec Pierce. I was like, at first, I was like, all right, they're probably going to trade down, right? You know, accumulate picks. And then I saw that I had a safety, and like most Bear fans, I was like, come on, there was some good tall receivers still on the board, you know? Once again, having to sleep on it for a couple of days now and digesting this guy's a stud. He really is. Uh, these two defensive backs failed because of there was two runs on wide receivers in this draft, and that's why these players were available. You know, I watched his highlights, and there are plays where he doesn't really. Um, I had a stat. I wish I had it with me, but he was one of the top three least targeted defensive backs in college. Out of all of them, he was in the three least targeted. So he has great coverage right there. Great coverage. He does something that Eddie Jackson doesn't do. He makes tackles at the line of scrimmage. You know, he started off as corner, of course, and then ended up moving into safety his final 2 years. So he's a better man coverage than Adrian Amos when we had him. So all in all, this guy's a stud. And like you said earlier about the corner we had, he doesn't give up touchdowns either. So as much as I wanted a receiver, you got two starters in the secondary where we needed it. Because the Bears are supposed to be the monsters of the midway, right? Looking at the final thing, looking at the statistics, there were 7 games last year where we gave up 17 points or less. All the other games, we gave up at least 24 or more. We're giving up a lot of points. So the Bears are supposed to be the monsters in the midway. First thing we can do is if for some reason we can't get pressure and get that sack, we get two guys in the secondary that can make plays.
Yeah, I felt bad for Sean Desai last year in his first season as a defensive coordinator, just because I thought he got a raw deal, but he had to take the job. So it's unfortunate for him, and he was given crap to work with. So I thought this was one of the best picks that he made as well. And it was the second best pick and just happened to be the second pick. Reason being, you brung up a name that I love. I just love to hear. I used to love to hear, but he's a Packer now, so I don't like him anymore. Adrian Amos. Adrian Amos was that dude. He was that dude. He made Eddie Jackson everything that Eddie Jackson is. All that money that Eddie Jackson got in that big contract, he owes it to Adrian Amos. Adrian Amos should have half of Eddie Jackson's money. And the reason being is Eddie Jackson got to be Eddie Jackson. He didn't have to tackle. He didn't have to um, all he had to do, he didn't even have to cover anybody. All Eddie Jackson had to do was watch the quarterback's eyes and go get the ball and go get touchdowns. That's all he had to do. If you look back at those seasons where Eddie Jackson was getting all those touchdowns, it was simply put, he was playing center field. He wasn't even playing a man or a real coverage or anything. So with Brisker, I forgot his name there for a second. Man, oh boy, I'm gonna get used to saying his name a lot because I think he's gonna make a lot of plays. He can get up to the line of scrimmage. He's gonna hit people, and I love physical safeties. They're gonna put a hat on somebody. He's good in coverage. You mentioned he's better than Amos. Amos, that was something he developed later on as he got into his career with the Packers. He's become a better coverage safety. But prior to that, he was not a coverage safety at all. So he's gonna have all of those abilities. Um, Also in college, I don't know if you're aware of this, but he also played nickel corner in college. So he's going to have that versatility there as well. So if we absolutely have to have another nickel corner, then you can slide him down. He'll have the cover skills, but also have those tackling skills that he's going to put a hat on somebody from the line of scrimmage and at the nickel corner slot. You can slide another safety in, and we can still have all of that versatility and have two great tacklers out there as opposed to having, say, a smaller nickel corner that doesn't want to actually mix it up down there with the big guys. So I thought it was a fantastic pick. It was the greatest need on the defense other than corner, honestly. I know that we needed some linebackers. We could use some pass rushers or a defensive tackle and all those things. But in my opinion, we weren't going to bring back any of our safeties from last year. So since we weren't going to bring any of them back, you had to replace them with somebody. So we got a really good player, and I'm really applauding Ryan Poles, just simply put, because he drafted the best player available as opposed to going for need and reaching. Um, any additional thoughts on your boy Brisker?
No, I think we're both on the same page. I would say he could be arguably. I like him honestly a little bit more than Gordon. So I think he can make more plays, like impact plays. But Gordon, if you got a corner, you get cover sacks just by having good corners. So all in all, though, these are both solid picks. Very solid.
Yeah. So we'll move on to Velas Jones Jr., wide receiver from Tennessee. Now, I got to tell you, I spent probably after this pick, probably about an hour on the phone with both of my brothers on a three-way call, trying to talk them off the ledge because they were furious with this pick. And I've heard a lot of people are
Hey, which,
upset with this pick.
hold on, which brother off the ledge now? Which one?
Both of them, both of them. I mean,
Do I,
both of them were furious
is,
with this pick.
is one of them Brian?
Yes.
Then let him go. Let him go. Let him go. I got one more.
I'm pretty sure my wife would agree with you to let him walk off the ledge as
Let me
well.
uh
But
let me ask you a
yeah,
question.
go
What's
ahead.
the average? How long do NFL players typically last in the? How long is the typical career of an NFL player?
2 to 3 years.
2 or 3 years. A lot, you could say, don't make it to their second contract at least, or if they do, maybe they just get year a year. They could be journeyman.
Right.
Most Bears fans, for some reason, it's just you gotta have big and fast, right? They gotta be big
Mhm.
and fast. This guy's fast. He's 5'11". He was he's either the third or fourth fastest player in the entire draft.
He was. He's 4.31.
Fourth, okay,
No,
that's
no, no.
pretty
Sorry. I think it was a 4.29. I think it was a 4.29. Sorry.
good. Okay, that's the third. It's either the third or fourth fastest player in the entire draft. That's very good. Obviously, punt return, kick return, special teams and stuff. Listening to analysts talk about him and other people, he's the type of player like Devin Hester. Devin Hester could make 2 or 3 plays a game that can completely change the game. You punt him the ball with 10 seconds, he gets you to field goal position. So the guy's fast. He's not short. The only knock that people seems to have that he's 25, but if the average is 2 or 3 years, I mean, we don't need him to come in and be a number one where he's drafted. All he has to do is come in, make 2 or 3 impact plays, whether that's a deep ball down the field, which Justin Field is good at, or giving us good field. What's the word here? Good position. So having to think about it, the only knock on him outside is really just age. Everything else you love about him.
Yeah.
His body size, he looks like a running back, but he's fast. He's gonna break some tackles. He's either gonna burn you or break the tackle. So, as Bears fans, like, look, even Ryan Poles looked at some film with Justin Fields. Justin Fields, like, all right, this is a guy. If you draft him, I'm cool with that. Let's get him. So there's a lot to love about this guy. We got to see him play and not, like, oh, we don't like this. But see the man play.
I'm going to be honest with you. I was a big fan of this draft pick. I know
Okay.
that I actually thought this is where we were going to differ. I really did. I thought this is where we were going to differ.
No, I had
Um,
time to think about it. If you hadn't got me on draft night, I would have been upset. But I had time to sleep on it. That's all it was.
Dude, I literally, as soon as this pick happened, I was on a three-way call with both my brothers. talking them off the ledge because they were furious over this pick. I'm going to tell you. Um, I get it. He's 25 years old, which means that he doesn't have a lot of room for growth in terms of learning the game of football or athleticism, those things, because he's much older than the typical draft pick is going to be.
Mm-hmm.
However, you cannot teach speed. I don't care what anybody says. You can't teach it. He's got Tyreek Hill type speed. All right. And I watched those clips and I watched his feet move. And you know what it reminded me of? You know the cartoons like the Roadrunner, where you see the legs kind of like moving and dust is kicking up, but you don't really see the legs. Like that's how fast his legs were moving as he was running with the football. Now, it's one thing to see that in a 40-yard dash. It's another thing to see that actually happen on the football field where someone catches a slant and then they start to run, and the next thing you know, they're just gone. That's special. That's Tyreek Hill level. Now I'm not saying he's as good as Tyreek Hill because I just don't think that that's ever going to happen for him. However, I do think that he has the potential to at least be a very solid contributor, and that's all you can ask for from a third round pick is to be a very solid contributor and nothing more. You just want to have guys at that point that can fill roster spots and make at least make the defense think about you going over the top. If we just put that guy out there and we just let him run 9 routes, right? So just let him run 9 routes, nothing but 9 routes. Every couple of plays, he runs a 9 route just down the field. He's going to take a cornerback with him and he's going to take a safety with him every single time because he's just that fast. You're going to have to play over the top. You know what that's going to do? That's going to open up the middle of the field. It's going to open up slants. It's going to open up the tight end to work inside the field, tight outs. It's going to open up all of these things that we didn't have in previous seasons with the Bears. So I'm really excited about that. In the event that they actually don't defend this guy, Justin Field has the arm to get it to him in stride. So I'm not remotely worried about this. Not to mention, and this is the thing, because one of my brothers, Brian, he said you don't waste a third round pick on a return man, and I'm like, dude, do you remember Devin Hester was a second round pick? He was a second round pick. We spent a whole second round pick on a guy who could do nothing but return. Devin Hester by himself basically won what? In that Super Bowl run, he probably won 4 to 5 of those games by himself, at least. I'll go back to that. I'll never forget where I was. I just got married. My wife and I were in the bed watching the Monday night game where they were getting destroyed by the Arizona Cardinals.
Yeah.
I'll never forget that. It was the very first year of marriage. I think we had been married maybe 3 months or something like that.
Share that moment together.
Yeah, yeah. So we were in the bed watching that Monday night game because I wanted to go to sleep, but the Bears were getting destroyed, but I couldn't let it go. I had to watch. And I'll never forget watching Devin Hester return the punt and that kick return. I'll never forget it. That magical moment. He won that game. You won't forget the one where he returned the it was a field goal kick that was missed against the Giants. And he took that back like 108 yards. You don't forget those things. I won't forget the one in the Super Bowl. I just knew the moment that he returned that kick, the open kickoff in the Super Bowl. I just knew. I was like, it's destiny. We can forget about 1985. It's all over. We're gonna be all right. We're gonna have 2006 from now on, right? So that's the type of player that we're potentially getting. I'm not saying that he's Devin Hester. I'm just saying that when you in the third round, if you're going to take a shot at somebody, at least take a shot on a guy who has massive potential like this guy does. Um, any other final thoughts on Velus Jones?
No, we're on the same page. Like I say, you caught me on a good day. You didn't catch me on draft night. Otherwise, it
Well,
would be a little bit different.
I know we're about to disagree because we talked on the phone just slightly about this next pick, and I totally did not agree with you on what you said. So I'm curious to see if you still feel the same way about Braxton Jones.
How many roster spots did the Bears need before the draft? Do you know?
I have no clue, no clue. I
Okay.
think it was like 17 or 18, something like that.
It was at least 17 or 18 or not more. So even if they drafted all six people, they would have needed to fill 11 more roster spots. Um, the Bears had a lot of spots available. Generally, you get a new GM, you need a coach, both. Then teams kind of clean house. Unless it's already a playoff team, but you know you can go somewhere, they'll keep it together. But they generally clean house. That's why there's so many players that's not back. They traded away Mac, obviously. So when he traded down several times, we got 11 picks altogether. The draft is a crapshoot, obviously. Late round picks, most of them are supposed to be backups, developmental players, but every now and then there's a cream that rises to the top. Stephon Gilmore was a fifth round pick. You know, he rose to the top. He got paid. So you would think one or two, if not all of them, no, one or two of them will be studs. But the first pick, obviously, is Braxton Jones, the offensive tackle from Southern Utah. He waited to day three to get on offensive lineman. And looking at this guy's measurables and stuff, they say he's not polished and everything, needs to work on balance, probably bulk up a little bit, but I think it's a solid pick. Now, I don't think he's starting, but uh, Brian Post, I'm going to say Pace, drafted four offensive linemen. There's a good possibility one of them could start, though. At the very least, two to three of them can make the roster as backups. So, him, I don't think he's going to beat Tevin Jenkins. I do think he will at least compete against. Let me make sure I got this
Borum,
right.
Larry Borum.
Borum. I think he will compete against Bourne because all these offensive linemen we're going to talk about are athletic, and with the zone,
Yeah, the zone run scheme.
zone run, they all fit what they want. I think he's solid. I think he's going to compete with Borum. If Borum don't work out, this guy's going to take over. I truly feel that way.
Okay, so this is where we finally disagree. Now
Okay.
I'm gonna applaud Ryan Poles for one thing. So I'm not gonna clap just because the microphone would be too loud, but I'm gonna applaud, right? And the reason why I'm gonna applaud is because he did something that in recent memory no Bears GM has done. He took three draft picks, and turned it into seven. So I will applaud him for that because the Bears needed to fill holes, as you mentioned. As we talked about, there was like 17 or 18 spots that were needed. However, I was not a fan of this pick. This guy reminds me of a previous offensive tackle that we had, Charles Leno. That's who he reminds me of. He's a little fat, he's a little overweight, he's a little clumsy. Um, he doesn't have great technique. Now, Charles Leno was a seventh round pick who turned himself into a starter, and he also got one big contract from the Bears. I find that to be very impressive, especially from a seventh round pick. So I do applaud Charles Leno for maximizing his talent to the best of his ability, even if he wasn't very good. This
Okay.
guy could be similar, but I'm not a fan of the draft pick. I'm just
Okay.
not because I think that I'm not going to say that for sure there were better players out there for. Well, because I can't. When we get to this point of the draft, we're basing it all off potential, and then we're taking flyers on guys just because of athleticism and things like that, not necessarily because of raw talent generally at this point. But I just don't. After seeing Charles Leno for, I don't remember how many seasons he played with the Bears. I think it was like good 6 or 7 easily, right? Easily, easily,
Yeah.
easily.
Easily.
He was there for basically 3 years of Pace and well, no, I mean 3 years of Nagy, and he was there for all of the Fox years.
Okay.
So yeah, yeah. So that's like 7 years. Yeah, 7 years.
Okay.
So seeing that guy just not be able to stop anyone and be so big and so powerful. He can't stop the speed rushers. He can't stop the powerful guys. I don't want to see another guy like that. So maybe he's a swing tackle. Maybe we're just drafting for depth at this point. But I can't give him any points for drafting this guy. But like I said, I'll give him points for at least doing the exact opposite of every Bears GM and taking draft picks and turning them into more draft picks as opposed to trading up and still not getting it right when you trade up to go get the guy.
Okay.
Uh, what about Dominique Robinson, the defensive end?
Well, I think we're both on the same page with this one. I think he's one of the top two, arguably, in the later rounds. Um, could be the steals. He's one of the top two steals that I feel in the later rounds that they got. So Ryan Poles, they say why they drafted this guy because he started off as a wide receiver. You
Correct.
know, apparently he wasn't a very good wide receiver, so he switched to defensive line. So, but 6'4". So they asked Ryan Poles why they drafted him. They said he had flashes here and there of big plays. He still hasn't figured it all out because he's only played 2 seasons at this position, but the man has flashes. So if you can get that, bring him in. Let's just say bring him on obvious third downs, situational pass rush. Maybe you can see more flashes. I'm not saying he's going to get 10 sacks like Mark Anderson, but this guy is athletic. I mean, you play wide receiver now. You switch to a D line. You got some athleticism. You got some speed. So I don't think there's any Bears fans that hates this pick or is disappointed. So
I'm not. I don't hate it. I wasn't fully disappointed. I just wasn't. It was just meh. Honestly, it was just meh. The only thing that I like about him is that he's a former receiver, and so if the Bears get a turnover, we got a guy with who has some ball skills because at least he was a receiver, and he was good enough of a receiver in high school to get picked up in college to get a scholarship in college to go to college. So he has some ball skills. So that's exciting to me, and that's it. Is that maybe he gets his hands on some balls, some tip balls or something like that. He's going to probably catch them. He's going to have enough ability to probably shake some offensive players and possibly even take it to the house. Right. That's really the only thing that I'm really really excited about with him. Other than that, his 6.5 sacks in his college career, they don't stand out to me. It doesn't mean a whole lot to me. I understand that he's converted. He was converted to um, defensive end from a receiver. That's a drastic change. That's a complete change of mindset. That's a change in your body composition. So there's a lot to be that there's probably a lot of growth there, honestly. But I just don't like projects like this all the time. Um, so we'll see how this goes, especially with the Bears. The Bears projects almost never work. Just think of anybody that you've ever seen. There was a guy I cannot remember his name. I don't know why for the life of me right now. I should have wrote it down before we started. But he was a left tackle, and they made him lose all that weight to be a tight end, and then they cut him just a few years
oh
ago. You know
man,
exactly what I'm talking
yeah,
about. They did a
he did
parody.
the thing in the
They,
game. He did that. He
yeah,
got
yeah,
a
yeah. Yep. That was
pick.
his touchdown celebration. Yeah.
I
So
can't.
yeah, they made him lose all that weight to be a tight end because he wasn't that great as a left tackle, and then they cut him because he never developed. It was sad. So and I can there's a ton of people like that on the Bears that over the years that just don't work out that way. Wasting a pick on something like this when I feel like we could have gotten somebody who had a definitive role and could potentially help. Maybe this guy is a special teams performer. We'll just have to wait and see. But this one's so inconclusive for me, and it's a tad bit disappointing.
I'm gonna clap back for the one clap back for this is all these players are drafted in the fifth round, fifth, sixth, and seventh. So they're all flyers. You know, there's no if they were a sure thing, they would have been drafted higher. But for whatever reason, they all failed, which means at the very least their ceiling is a backup or their ceiling is untapped potential. And going back to Dominique Robinson, he has untapped potential. He's a high ceiling. I say he's an above average ceiling, but all these players, they need work. So we really, it's gonna take maybe the second year before we can like, if not third, to like, okay, we gotta grade this for what it is. So that's my only cut back. It's the fifth, sixth,
Um,
and seventh. So you only get so much out of them.
that is partially true. However, I'm going to point out that the great Bill Belichick generally does not take chances on players in the later rounds. He compiles a ton of picks in the final rounds from 4 to 7, right?
Mhm.
And he goes and he finds players who do something really, really well, even though they may not do a lot well. He finds them these players that do something extremely well. They're not only above average, but they're probably exceptional at whatever their talent is. He finds those guys. He puts them in positions to be successful. And that's what I think should be the model for any NFL franchise. Instead of just taking chances on athletic freaks that potentially could grow into something someday. Let's go find a guy who's exceptionally well at tackling. Let's go find a guy who's exceptional at creating turnovers. Let's put him in position to be great at whatever he does. And let's fill those back end of the roster spots. Not only do that, but let's develop the guy over time and turn him into a well-rounded football player who's still exceptional at this one thing. And I'll point out a, an undrafted free agent like Malcolm Butler, who Belichick went out and got, who was exceptional at creating turnovers. He was good at it, but he had a lot of technical issues and he was a little undersized and a little slow. Belichick found a way to develop Malcolm Butler and to turn him into something over time that became an all pro cornerback. But he found something in Butler right away that he could build upon, that he could use initially. And that's the problem that I actually have with some of these draft picks in the later rounds.
Well, not everyone's Bill Belichick.
No, not everyone is, but he's
So
giving you the formula, he's giving you the recipe. It can be done. Anything can be duplicated.
when you emulate other teams, it's not like I don't think someone is going to emulate Bill Belichick better. He does it the best. So I get what you're saying. At some point, you got to develop your own identity, and if it doesn't work out, it just doesn't work out. But yes, get someone that does a particular task very well, and just get him to do just that. Yeah, that's amazing. Um, the Bears got
But
to develop their own.
my point with that is Bill Belichick does not waste anything. All right. He does not waste any opportunities to pick up players ever. It does not matter. It's not wasted. So, hey, now I will say this some draft picks with the Patriots don't work out, but it ain't many. It ain't many. He hasn't been great picking up first round running backs. He hasn't been great picking up first round receivers. That's the only criticism you're going to have of him. Everything else that he does, it's golden because he doesn't waste opportunities. And that's my point, is to not waste opportunities, especially in the draft. Because you know what the draft is designed in such a way when they redid the new collective bargaining agreement a few about a decade ago, and they took away I don't do you remember when they had the rookies and the rookies used to negotiate contracts like individually and there wasn't a rookie wage scale? You remember that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's the
So,
Matt Staffy was making more money than
right, then the
was
best players in the game.
right.
The first overall pick was like highest played player coming into the league every single year, right? So they
Mhm.
created the rookie wage scale to basically suppress salaries on players coming into the league and essentially rob them of their best seasons. And some players would never get paid because they would either age out of the league or before they could get paid or they get hurt or something like that, right? Before they ever get paid. Well, Bill Belichick took that and realized, all right, well, we don't have to pay these guys anything. This is like slave labor. Let's go find the most talented people we can. Let's not waste any opportunities to find the slave labor that we can find. And let's put those guys in and let's make those guys do all the dirty work and we'll develop them. And then you know what we're going to do? When it's time to finally pay them, we'll let somebody else pay them and we'll find another slave labor to come in, or a few of the guys, maybe we might pay them just to keep this thing going. That's my point with all of this is that if you're going to do it right. Go find the guys out there that are the most talented, develop them, find something that they're good at. And in that case, I didn't say be like the Patriots completely, but you want to be like the Patriots scouting department. If you want to be like the Ravens scouting department, like the Steelers scouting department, those are the teams that always find those diamonds in the rough in the draft. They build them up, they turn them into something, and then they let those guys go somewhere else. All right.
No,
Go ahead.
no, we got to keep it going. We're at 41 minutes.
I know, right? I know. This was the we went a little over time on the bonus, but it's
You want
great.
break
It's a
or
good. No. Let's keep going. Let's keep going. Let's
all right?
finish it out. We only
Well,
have
Zachary Thomas. We picked another tackle. I mean, he's a depth piece. He got experience at both left and right, so I thought he could be a swing tackle. They say he's more physical in the run game than the guy I like, Braxton Jones. So just another depth piece. Maybe he'll develop. I don't know, but for now, a depth piece.
no one knows, but I actually like this pick, and I'll tell you why. Because they say he has kind of shorter arms, so kind of like how when they drafted Larry Borum last year, and he has shorter arms for a tackle. So, and they were saying that Larry Borum would probably push inside the guard. And
Mhm.
we saw that just a little bit in the season, but mostly we saw him play tackle, Larry Borum. I think that they drafted Zachary Thomas with the same intention. He may slide in the guard because he's a little nasty and physical in the run game, which is ideal and what you need for a guard on the other side. Or you may see Larry Borum slide in and see him play tackle. I don't know, but I just have a sneaky suspicion that that's what's going to happen with him. Um, Treston, uh, Treston Ebner, I think
Abner.
he's just a depth piece at running back. I didn't really see a whole lot that I was like thrilled about.
Here's where we differ. I like this
All
guy.
right, all
Looking at
right.
his stats, he gets almost as many rushing stats as he does rushing yards as he does passing yards. So he can do both. I think because now we got a regime that's going to run the ball. Something Nagy didn't do. Nagy, I don't know. He felt like he needed to take a shower if he ran the ball more than 10 times a game. It felt like. So this regime is going to run the ball. Obviously, top of the depth chart is Montgomery. Khalil Herbert is going to get some carries. If this guy is looked at because he can rush and pass, you can design some pass. You can design some plays where he's one on one against a linebacker. Running backs typically win those matchups. So I honestly think if you develop this guy, Montgomery's gone because
Yeah,
Montgomery, you got to pay him. This is his last year, I believe. So
correct.
if this Khalil Herbert, we saw him in a small sample size, and everyone loved him. Everyone loved him. He did a phenomenal job. And backing up Montgomery, he did a good job. So this is the pick right here. If you see him and he looks good, he does some good stuff in the preseason. They give him a few carries and stuff in the regular season here or there. I think Montgomery's out the door.
Well, Montgomery's out the door regardless. I believe. I don't think he'll be around. If they were going to pay him, they probably we would have heard some rumblings about a contract extension by now. So I just don't think he's coming back, especially when you got Khalil Herbert in the back and he's arguably just as good as Montgomery. And if a football team is smart, they carry my philosophy. You never pay a running back ever a second contract ever because the moment that you pay them a second contract, you look like the Dallas Cowboys. You're stuck with Ezekiel, aging ghost of Ezekiel Elliott, and now you can't get out of it. And you got to trade off all your pieces that are actually good and contributing to the team because you got to pay this guy. So never pay a running back. So I think Montgomery's got to go. I don't think he's anything special. I think he's just a depth piece. He was a kick returner, so we may see him be a kick returner. He's probably going to be a big contributor on special teams. But what I will say, especially in the later rounds, if you're going to draft a player, there's two states that that player should come from, especially in the later rounds. Two states, just two. There's only two states I would draft a player from.
Okay.
From round 4 down. They either got to come from Florida, more specifically, like Miami-Dade County area is where I want my player from, or I want them from Texas. All right. And the reason why is because football's on a whole nother level here in Texas. All right. On a whole nother level. He went to Baylor. So I know what he's about if he went to Baylor. And
Okay.
I love Baylor. I'm going to say that for my Texas Longhorn people watching. I love Baylor just because I got to troll them a little bit. I just got to, I don't have nothing against Texas. Well, I have nothing against the players of Texas. I got something against that song that they play at the end of games. That's my only issue with them. So when they get
Okay.
done uh, that racist song, then maybe I'll root for Texas one day. But like I said, get back to the point. He's from Texas, which tells me he can play ball. If you can play high school football in Texas, you are probably better than everyone else in the country. And I'm talking about just being a bench player. I'm not talking about being a star. I'm talking about being a bench player. You're probably better than everyone else in the country just off the sheer fact that you play against other guys from Texas. And they don't make them like that. All right, moving forward. Doug Kramer, the center. Um, Go ahead.
Yeah, center from Illinois. He's probably going to compete with Sam Mustipher. Um, the positives: he started 47 games. He was one of the team leaders. So there's some positives for him. He's probably going to be. I mean, I don't see him starting. He's a depth piece. I honestly hope he beats out Sam Mustipher because Mustipher was underwhelming, but I don't have much to say about him.
I think Munster is going to get cut, and I think he's the reason why. Actually, I
Okay.
actually really like this pick. I thought this was one of the steals in the draft, but quite possibly.
Okay.
Um, I don't know if you knew this. He didn't give up a whole sack his whole college career. He does not have one sack attributed to him. I believe it was like 388 snaps, not one sack in his whole career. All right. Now, we have Lucas Patrick, who is technically the center, technically on the depth chart. He's the center, but he could easily slide over to guard.
Right.
So if this kid can come into training camp and he can prove that he belongs, I could quite easily see him moving into the center spot. And then you move Lucas Patrick over to the right guard spot. And we already have Cody White here on the other side. So it's just a matter of deciding at that point which tackle slot does Borum go in and which tackle slot does the other kid go in. And that's what it really comes down to. So this is one of those ones where, again, Ryan Pace, I'm gonna applaud you because
Eh,
you found a diamond in the rough there.
that's your reply. Well, I felt that one of these assignments.
I'm one second. I have to apologize to Ryan Poles because I called him Ryan Pace. This is what we get for having a GM that has the exact same initials as the previous GM. We had Ryan Pace as the old GM, who was terrible, and now we got Ryan Poles, who seems to be doing an adequate job. Not to mention, if you don't know, we have a head coach. The former head coach was Matt Nagy, and now we have a new head coach, Matt Eberflus. So yeah,
Matt,
um,
Matt, Ryan, and Ryan.
yeah, it's good. It's interesting. Go ahead though. Continue. What's your
Maybe the
thought?
Bears didn't want to change the name tag on the desk or something. It's like, all right, keep the Matt up there, keep the Ryan up there.
Bears
I
being
feel like one of these players, O lineman, because they drafted four to sneak into the starting spot, and if it's him, I mean, the only issue is they say it's a little undersized, but he's able to do that without giving up a sack. So training camp is around the corner, so we'll see which one of these stand out. So
yep,
next pick is man, was
John Tyree
Tyree
Carter
Carter from Southern.
got nothing on him. Honestly, other than
Uh,
that, he was got nothing on him, and
he's
he's
a
play
four
tackle.
year he's a 4 year starter at left tackle. 6'3". They say he might move in because he projects as a guard. Um, yeah, I had nothing on him. So could be a swing tackle, could be a dead piece, could move into guard, but at least he was a tackle for 4 years.
Yeah,
So
and I'm with that, and that's the same way I feel about Elijah Hicks, the safety that they got in the sixth round. I got nothing on him. I mean, honestly, I don't know what he's going to be. I know that he was all Pac-12, but other than that, eh, yeah, who knows? Oh, I mean, we don't know. That's the thing. I mean, you can get a six-round pick, he turns into something, but I mean, right now, it's kind of like he's going to be he's irrelevant at this point. It's just like getting
yeah,
that last draft pick in the draft. What is it? Pick what,
Mr.
199, I
Relevant.
believe. Yeah, Mr.
No, because
Irrelevant.
this guy was picked 226.
Sorry, I said 199. Yes, you're right.
Isn't it two?
Uh, how many picks are there in the draft? I don't know, but whatever the pick is, Mr. Irrelevant's the last pick. I know that,
Uh,
and they always give him like a little trophy and stuff like that.
252.
And 252.
This year, it might change every year because this year is 262 because they got supplemental picks and stuff. So I think
Right.
that might change. But this year is 262.
Yeah, it does change because I know they do carry supplementals because you get an extra pick if you lose a player in free agency or whatever, and you transition tag them and stuff like that. So yes, or if they take a restricted free agent or whatever, you get picks. So I just know that they give the dude Mr. Irrelevant a trophy every year, and
Gotta be
that's so
special.
disrespectful, so
You'll be
disrespectful.
tell your family, your friends, like, yeah, I got drafted in the NFL. Well, which pick were you? It was 256. How many people got drafted? 256.
Hey, look, I don't care because you know why? You know why I wouldn't care?
Right.
Did they get drafted? How many of them got drafted? What are the odds that you got a family member that got drafted ever?
Highly unlikely. So,
Exactly, exactly. And
uh,
what are the odds? Okay, just to put it this way, you ever see those commercials when they run like the NCAA tournament and stuff, and they're like, "There's 300,000 college athletes, and only like 300 of them are going to go pro or something like that." Like it's
mhm.
such a small number. So if you even get drafted, you're just special. You're special. You should wear it with pride, and then you should take your getting cut by the team with pride as well, because you're probably going. Well, the truth is, you're probably going to the practice squad. You're Mr. Irrelevant if you get to the practice squad at all, but that's probably where you're headed. To be truthful,
Mm.
the last pick, Trenton Gill, the punter from NC
Hold
State.
on. I got to cut you off. We missed Elijah Hicks, safety from Cal.
Oh, oh, that's who I was talking about when I said Elijah Hicks, the safety from Cal. I was saying he doesn't matter. That's why I was saying he was all
Oh,
Pac-12.
that's what you said. I thought you
Yeah,
meant that.
yeah, I
Okay,
didn't care about.
honestly, I watched his highlights, and I mean, all these players got some highlights. So I like him. I think that obviously he's a depth piece, but I think he'll make the team. So, um,
Squad. But let's wrap this up because we're running short on time. Trenton Gill.
they needed a punter. They said a knock on him was he doesn't get a lot of air under his punts, but I think that's a benefit because you're in Chicago, so you don't need the ball just needs to get there. You don't need to kick the ball so high it can hit the scoreboard of the Dallas facility. So I think with the way the Windy City is, he could be the perfect kick because the ball just simply needs to get there. Dealing with
Nah,
the Chicago.
I don't care. Didn't watch his highlights. All I know is that he's not Pat O'Donnell. That's what
Okay.
I know. Didn't re-sign Pat O'Donnell, and there's no excuse for not re-signing Pat O'Donnell. And especially when you let Pat O'Donnell go to the Cheeseheads of all the people. You let him go to the Cheeseheads. You let a dude with a booming leg go to your enemy. And now he's going to be pinning us on the 1 yard line the way that we used to pin them on the 1 yard line. So
Hey, if you
this
make
is
it
one
feel,
of those.
go
What'd you
ahead.
say?
I said, if it makes you feel better, the Packers will probably lose in the playoffs. If it makes you feel better,
Oh, they're gonna lose in the playoffs. So
they
that's
probably will.
always
It'll
okay.
be to the 49ers again because it's just
Uh,
funny.
I don't think this would be for another podcast. But honestly, I don't think the Niners are going to make it back. I think their run's over. If Trey Lance doesn't turn out to be any good this season, their run's over. If they got to go to
Okay.
Jimmy Garoppolo, just forget about the Niners. They're done. Done.
Okay.
They don't have any draft picks, and they don't have a quarterback if Trey Lance doesn't work out. But that's for another podcast. But hey, you guys got some extra bonus content this week, so pretty cool. We'll be back on our regular scheduled Wednesday. We'll probably be talking about some NBA basketball. Well, in fact, I know we will be talking about some NBA basketball. Um, and it's going to be a blast because I can tell you what we've been seeing is absolutely fantastic, especially without LeBron. And it's been kind of nice without KD too. So just seeing some new faces and a lot of fast paced NBA. Anything else you want to add before we go? You want to say to the people?
Uh, People out there, I mean, hey, this is Ryan Poe's first draft. Let's just see what happens. Like, I mean, it's a different regime. We knew what we were getting from Pace. Pace kept wasting draft picks to trade up to get one person, and if it didn't work out, it just set us back. I appreciate sometimes it's like you believe in your player, you go for it. But if every year you keep trading up to get a player, you trade to risky. We lost 3 picks. If we had drafted any other quarterback and then used those extra 3 picks, we could have got another starter or two. So at the very least, you toss all these darts. Let's see who sticks. Might
Well,
find a
hey,
diamond.
it's only his first draft, so we got to give him another shot to see what he does with 2023, especially with that cap room that we're going to have. Bears are supposed to clear something like 123 million in cap room, so it's going to be entirely new team next year, and that's where we're going to start judging them. Is really next year. Also, just want to throw out there, Charlie Murphy heard what the people said, and he gave the people what they want. He wore a more interesting T-shirt today for the people, and I tell you, he did it begrudgingly. By the way, that's why that face looks like that. But he did it.
There's one thing I want to add. I forgot about the Bears. Since Phil
Okay,
Emery took off,
1 minute.
the Bears were.
1 minute. You got 1 minute. Go.
Right. Since Phil Emery took over, the Bears every year up until not including this year, but every year from Phil Emery until Pose, not including Pose though, they were top 10 in free agent spending. And where's it gotten us?
Nowhere.
That's all I can say.
Exactly. And I totally agree with you. But hey, thank you guys for watching the dialogue. Rate us, review us, give us 5 stars. Make sure you watch us on YouTube and support. And we'll see you guys in a couple of days.